Are you teaching my sons to pray? A church? What do you think you're doing, teaching them that garbage? Derek Lawson's voice exploded down the hallway like a bomb. And for a moment, time seemed to stop inside the softly lit bedroom. Noah and James, the 5-year-old twin boys, sat frozen on the rug, their small hands still clasped in prayer. Across from them, kneeling in her simple, was Amina. Derek Lawson stands at the doorway, tailored in charcoal gray, his eyes like steel. He steps forward slowly, like entering a battlefield. I don't need superstition polluting my home, especially not from the help. His words hit harder than a slap. Are you teaching my sons to pray? What is this? Some kind of holy crusade? This is my house, and I will not tolerate religious brainwashing under my roof. Amina's breath caught, her back gently hitting the wall behind her as she raised her palms in a nervous, protective gesture. Mr. Lawson, please, I didn't mean any harm. I wasn't preaching. Your sons were afraid of the thunder. I was giving them something to hold on to. I thought maybe if they said something, up toward heaven, they'd feel a little less. I don't want to hear it. Derek snapped, his finger stabbing the air. They have therapists for that, tutors, structure. They don't need imaginary solutions from a maid. You don't fill my sons' heads with nonsense about heaven or spirits or any of that imaginary garbage. We don't do that in this house. I don't raise my children on fairy tales and false hope. James stood up quickly, his small voice trembling. Daddy, she just told us we could talk to Mom. His tone drips with entitlement. Noah speaks up, just a whisper, but clear. But she made me feel safe. Derek doesn't even look at him. They're my children, and you will never teach them anything again without my permission. Do you understand me? You knew the rules. You broke them. I'm done. Pack your things. You're gone first thing tomorrow. Ben's eyes welled up. No, Daddy. Please don't send her away. She helps us sleep. She helps us feel better, Theo whispered. Enough! Derek bellowed, his face darkening. Back to your room now. The boys hesitated. Noah's hand clung to Maya's skirt and she gently guided it away. It's okay, she whispered, her voice cracking. Go! Derek shouted. Startled, the boys ran, tears silently streaming down their cheeks as they disappeared down the hallway. Amina stood alone now, the room suddenly too big and too silent. She swallowed hard. Mr. Lawson, she said, her voice low and pleading. Please don't fire me. I didn't mean to overstep. I didn't think. You didn't think. That's right, Derek said, turning away, and now you're done. That's the end of it. No, I promise I won't do it again, Amina said quickly, stepping forward just slightly. I'll follow every rule. I won't even talk about anything you don't want. I care about those boys. Derek didn't look back. You'll be gone by morning, and with that, he left her standing there. She felt the heat in her cheeks, the sting of humiliation, and the trembling in her knees. Alone in the quiet room, she sat down slowly on the edge of the boys' bed, her hands shaking in her lap. The next morning, long before the sun could climb past the iron gates of the Lawson estate, Amina stood at the edge of the nursery one last time. She didn't wake them. Noah's legs dangled halfway off the bed. Jordan's small hands clutched the corner of the blanket like it was a lifeline. Both boys had cried themselves to sleep the night before. Amina knew. She'd sat in the hallway outside their door until their breathing slowed. Now, in the pale gray hush of dawn, she stepped inside and gently placed something on the small dresser between their beds. It was a modest wooden box, weathered at the corners. On the lid, she had etched one word in gold ink, keep. Inside were hand-folded drawings the boys had made, stick figures with capes, a woman in a headscarf, a house made of stars. Tucked beneath was a soft blue prayer cloth and a handwritten note in perfect cursive. You are loved, always. Speak truth, protect each other, and remember where light comes from. She added one last thing, a tiny bottle of frankincense oil. Just one drop could make a room feel like home. Amina didn't take much. She folded her uniform neatly into the laundry basket and changed into the same clothes she'd worn when she arrived 9 months ago. Black slacks, navy sweater, shoes with fraying soles. She paused in the mirror by the hallway. The handprint was still faint on her cheek. She didn't cry. She fixed her headscarf, tied it tighter, and gave herself a small nod. Let them say what they want. God saw. Outside, the morning rain had begun, a slow, steady mist that clung to the roses along the east fence. Amina stepped onto the porch with her duffel, the wooden steps creaking beneath her. The great house stood silent behind her, too grand, too cold. She didn't look back, but the door behind her burst open. No! It was Noah, barefoot, pajamas soaked in tears. Jordan stumbled behind, clutching the box, eyes wide and panicked. Amina, please don't go, Noah screamed. Take us with you, Jordan sobbed. Amina turned, heart splitting. They ran into her arms, one on each side, clutching her like she was the last steady thing in their world. The box tumbled open between them, drawings scattering onto the wet porch. I'm sorry, Noah cried. We tried to tell him. We said you were good. Amina knelt down in the rain. Shh. Shh. Listen to me, she whispered, wiping Jordan's nose with her sleeve. You did nothing wrong. And you don't have to protect me, little man. That's not your job. Your family, Noah sobbed. Daddy doesn't get to say whose family. Her lips trembled. You remember that, she whispered. You hold on to that, no matter what. She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out 2 tiny folded notes, one for each boy, names written in her handwriting, sealed with tape. Don't open them now. When it gets hard, when it feels like the world's upside down, you read these. Deal? They nodded, sniffling. Behind them, the butler cleared his throat. He didn't say anything, just stood there in the doorframe, silently watching. No one moved. Finally, Amina stood up. You go inside now. Dry off. And take care of each other. No, Noah tried again, but Jordan pulled him back, clinging to the box, his bottom lip quivering. She turned and walked down the steps, one careful foot at a time. The screen door closed behind her. At the gate, Amina paused under the magnolia tree. The petals were soaked through, sagging with the weight of rain. A tear finally escaped. Rain still clings to the windows, streaked by passing winds. Inside the Lawson estate, silence falls heavy. The house once filled with soft humming, and the scent of cinnamon tea now echoes only with footsteps, cold, precise, and far too loud. Amina's room is empty. Her folded blanket remains on the armchair, untouched. The nursery lights blink faintly in the hallway. At breakfast, Noah knocks over a full glass of orange juice. It spills across the marble like a blooming wound. Clean it up, Derek says, distracted, scrolling through emails on his tablet. Noah doesn't move. He stares forward, jaw tight. James nudges the box in his lap, the one Amina left. Inside are drawings of their bedtime stories, a photo of the 3 of them, and a small paper envelope with a note. For when it rains and you feel too small. He doesn't speak. He hasn't since she left. By noon, Derek is called in by the school principal. Noah punched a classmate during recess, the woman explains, brows drawn. This isn't like him. Derek barely hears the rest. He's nodding mechanically, phone buzzing in his hand. At a red light on the way back, he watches the twins in the back seat through the mirror. James is hugging the box again. Noah's fists are balled. She left, Noah mutters. Just like Mom. Derek stiffens. The car stays still. The light turns green. And still he doesn't move. Back at the mansion, he holds an emergency meeting in the West Wing lounge. 3 new applicants, each from premium agencies, sit across from him. One speaks French, another touts Montessori training. The third shows him a resume formatted like a corporate pitch deck. They each meet the children in turn. 5 minutes, 10. Each child silent. Then the screaming starts. James throws a chair. Noah locks himself in the bathroom and refuses to come out. By evening, the estate staff are whispering. The head housekeeper offers chamomile tea, but Derek declines. He reviews financials, makes phone calls, Scrolls through nanny portfolios until the faces blur. A $50 million deal with their biotech partner in Zurich is unraveling. Someone botched a compliance review. Derek is asked to fly in, stabilize the optics. He cancels. He can't leave the twins. The next day, he tries again. A new nanny arrives at noon. Noah ignores her. James cries when she touches the box. That night, James refuses dinner. He sits curled on the hallway floor, whispering. "Don't go, don't go, don't go," he repeats, clutching the envelope. Derek watches from the stairs. His throat feels tight. By Thursday, the hallway is scattered with toys, drawings, clothes they refuse to wear. Amina used to label everything, fold their laundry with notes in each sock drawer. Now everything smells sterile. He walks into his office and finds a broken frame under his desk, one he didn't know they had. It's a photo of the twins hugging Amina at their 5th birthday. Someone had glued tiny stars in the corners. He sits down hard, knees buckling. By Friday, Zurich threatens to pull out. Their lawyers cite instability in leadership. The COO asks if he's still in the game. Derek says he'll circle back. He doesn't. That night, the storm returns. Soft, barely a mist. But inside the house, something else is brewing. At 2:14 a.m., Derek stirs awake. Not from noise, but from absence. No rain, no wind, no air conditioner hum. He walks barefoot through the corridor. As he approaches the children's wing, he hears it, a whisper. Low, raw. He pushes the door ajar. Noah is on the floor, arms around James. The box lies open. The envelope is unfolded. The twins are reading it out loud. "Dear angels, if you're reading this, it means I've left, but not forever. When I close my eyes at night, I will still be praying for you. Remember to drink water before bed. Remember to be kind to each other. And remember, being strong doesn't mean hiding your feelings. It means asking for help when you need it. You are never alone. Even when I'm gone, love doesn't leave. God stays. I stay." James chokes out a sob. Noah wipes his nose on his sleeve. And then comes the sound that stops Derek cold. "Mom?" James whispers into the air. "Can you tell Amina to come back?" Derek's body goes still. His fingers tremble. He turns to walk away, but his reflection in the hallway mirror catches him, gray at the temples, dark circles under his eyes, suit wrinkled from sleeping on the sofa. A man who can close billion-dollar mergers, but can't convince 2 children that love stays. In the kitchen, he opens the cabinet where Amina used to keep the bedtime tea. The tin is gone. Only a post-it remains on the inside. "They like 2 spoons of honey, don't forget." He stares at it for a long time. On Saturday morning, James refuses to come out of the linen closet. He's built a nest with blankets and keeps whispering, "Stop leaving." Derek crouches by the door. "I'm not going anywhere," he says softly. No response. The third nanny quits via text. "Sir, I believe your children are processing something I'm not equipped to handle." He doesn't respond. He cancels his next round of investor meetings. By Sunday, the twins have moved their pillows to the hallway outside Amina's old door. They refuse to sleep in their rooms. Derek finally enters her space for the first time. It smells of lavender and talcum powder. Everything is as she left it. Except one thing, a tiny blue note taped under the desk. "If they can't sleep, sing the apple pie song. You know the one." He doesn't. But he hums anyway. And for the first time in 6 nights, both children fall asleep. On Monday morning, his assistant Ava Lynn finds him at the breakfast table, hair disheveled, still in yesterday's shirt. "I rescheduled Zurich," she says carefully. He nods. She hesitates, then places a folder on the table. "Sir, I know you didn't ask, but I pulled Amina's file from HR. I thought you should see this." Inside is a resume. Not the one she submitted through the agency. The real one. Bachelor's degree in early childhood trauma therapy. Minor in child psychology. Volunteer coordinator for grief and resilience programs. At the bottom, a letter of recommendation from a former family she worked for. She saved our lives, it reads. Derek closes the folder. For the first time, his hands stop shaking. He knows what he must do. And he knows. He should have done it 6 days ago. The black SUV slowed to a crawl as it entered a quiet neighborhood in South Chicago. Rows of aging brownstones stood shoulder to shoulder, flanked by basketball hoops nailed to garage doors and kids weaving through puddles on scooters. Derek Lawson adjusted his collar in the mirror. This wasn't his world, but someone in this world had shaken his to its core. He stepped out, sleek shoes hitting cracked pavement. His presence drew eyes. A few teens on the stoop went quiet. Someone recognized him. But Derek kept walking, toward the stone church with chipped white trim and a vinyl banner fluttering. Wednesday evening youth fellowship, 6:00 p.m. All are welcome. He paused at the basement door, voices rising in chorus from inside. He opened the door. A dozen children sat in a loose circle on the basement carpet, crayons in hand, Bibles and art paper spread out. At the center, in a soft gray cardigan and navy skirt, Amina knelt beside a boy spelling forgiveness out loud. She looked up, the room stilled. Amina stood, slow and cautious. Why are you here? Derek closed the door behind him, tension filling the air. I need to talk to you, please. Amina's jaw tightened. You've already said everything that mattered, by saying nothing. He glanced at the kids, then back to her. Can we speak privately? A heavy pause, then a voice from behind. You can use my office. A woman in her 60s, strong-boned and elegant in a purple clergy robe, emerged from the hallway. I'm Reverend Estelle Boone, and I've been hearing a lot about you, Mr. Lawson. Amina gave a small nod and led Derek to a back room, modest, filled with books and a warm lamp. As the door closed, he started. Noah's been suspended. James won't eat. They won't speak to the nannies. It's chaos. I didn't realize how much you were holding together. Amina crossed her arms. You thought I was just furniture, convenient, replaceable. I never said that. You didn't have to. Silence stretched between them. Rain began tapping the window behind her. Derek dropped his gaze. They miss you. Please come back. She laughed softly, but without humor. So I can keep your sons fed, quiet, and off your schedule's radar? So you can keep ignoring what they need? They need you. They need a father who listens, who doesn't flinch when his son's voice shakes or hides under the table with grief. Derek flinched. I'm trying. You're used to controlling rooms with money and contracts, but your children's healing isn't a deal to close, it's a trust to earn. Another silence, a soft knock. Reverend Boone opened the door without waiting. Forgive me, but I couldn't help overhearing. She walked in with the authority of someone unbothered by wealth. Mr. Lawson, I know your name. I know your companies. You give big to charity. But trust? She leaned forward. You can't write a check for that. Derek straightened, defensive. I didn't come here to be judged. No, son. You came here to ask a black woman to clean up your brokenness. Again. He opened his mouth, but said nothing. The Reverend continued. You want her back? Start by admitting you don't deserve her. Then listen. Amina's eyes shimmered, but she stayed composed. I told the boys I'd always hear them when they pray, that I'd be near even if I couldn't be close. Derek's voice cracked. Last night, I heard James whispering. He was clutching that box you left. He asked God why his other mama had to leave. That stopped her breath. I didn't know they saw you that way, he said. You never asked, she whispered. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded page, one of Noah's drawings, stick figures holding hands. Amina, him, James. A speech bubble. Please come home. She blinked fast, swallowing emotion. Her fingers trembled. But she shook her head. They don't need me back. They need you to show up. I'm not the fix. I was the patch. Reverend Boone nodded slowly. Truth leaves bruises, Mr. Lawson, but it also breaks open the door to change. He folded the page back, standing still. If I start walking through that door, will you walk with me? Amina looked down. One step behind, for the boy's sake, not yours. Outside, the rain softened. Derek exhaled, a quiet nod. Then I'll start with that. He turned, eyes lingering. Reverend Boone gave him one last look. Remember, you're not asking for a maid. You're asking for a miracle. Don't mistake the difference. He stepped out, and the church basement filled with children's laughter again. Amina sat back down beside the crayons, but her eyes lingered on the door. The phone call came at 11:47 a.m. Derek was mid-presentation in a glass-walled conference room when his assistant, Claire, entered, pale, holding her tablet like a lifeline. "It's Orion Elementary. It's Noah," she whispered. His breath stalled. By the time Derek reached the school, Noah was already in the nurse's room, curled under a weighted blanket. A damp cloth rested on his forehead. Principal Hall met him at the door, tight-lipped. He collapsed after music class. No fever, no dehydration, just stress. The counselor says he hasn't spoken to anyone in days, not even his sister. Derek swallowed hard. "Where's James?" "In the hallway. She asked if Miss Amina was coming." That name again. Noah stirred only when he heard Derek's voice. "Daddy?" he mumbled, barely audible. "I'm here, son. I'm here," Derek choked out. But Noah turned his face to the wall. By 4:15 p.m., Derek's Rolls-Royce stopped in front of New Hope Baptist Church, deep in South Kansas City. His tailored suit stood out like chrome in the warm dusk of the neighborhood. Children's laughter floated from the basement windows. Derek followed it. Downstairs, a dozen children, mostly black and brown, some shoeless, sat cross-legged around a woman in a navy sweater and jeans. A flannel board displayed a parable about a mustard seed. Amina. She didn't look up when Derek entered. She kept reading. And the smallest seed grew into the largest tree, so that even the birds came to rest in its branches. A boy raised his hand. "Like when my mom said our house was too small, but then my uncle came and built a new room?" Amina smiled. "Exactly like that." The room giggled. Only then did her eyes flicker toward the door. He waited. When the children were dismissed, she walked to the supply closet. He followed. Inside, boxes of crayons, Bibles, and winter coats lined the shelves. It smelled like glue and lemon oil. "You came," she said without turning. "I had to." "Why now?" He took a breath. "Noah collapsed at school today." Her spine stiffened. "Is he okay?" "He will be. But he hasn't said a word in days. James is barely eating. They ask for you." Amina turned. Her eyes were calm, but her voice was iron. "So now you need me again." "You fired me." I panicked. Didn't know how to defend what I didn't understand." "That's not an apology." A pause. "I'm sorry, Amina, for how I treated you." He exhaled. "I loved those kids like my own." "I know that now." Silence, huh? "I'll double your rate," he offered. She raised an eyebrow. "You think this is about money?" "No, it's about trust. And the truth is, you're the only person they feel safe with." He lowered his eyes. "I'm not here to buy her. I'm here to ask." Amina studied his face. "I'll come," she said finally. "But not for you. For Noah and James." Derek nodded, grateful but uneasy. "I understand." The gate of the Lawson estate opened. The children were already at the window. The moment Amina stepped out of the car, Noah burst out the front door barefoot, eyes wide. "Miss Amina!" James followed, clutching her drawing pad. "You came back!" Amina dropped to one knee as both children slammed into her arms. She wrapped them tight. "I missed you so much," Noah whispered into her collar. "Me too," Amina said, pressing her face into their hair. Derek stood behind them, silent. He watched the tremor in Noah's shoulders melt away. The maid had done in 2 minutes what no therapist had managed in 2 weeks. Later that evening, under the amber glow of the dining room chandelier, the Lawsons sat around the long mahogany table. James clutched her stuffed owl. Noah poked at his mashed potatoes, suspicious. Derek cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" Noah frowned. "Miss Amina reads the prayer." A beat of silence. I can read it," Derek offered. Noah shook his head, lip trembling. "Miss Amina, please." Amina looked to Derek for permission. He nodded. She folded her hands. The children followed. "Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together again, for healing what felt broken, and for the small moments that remind us we're not alone. Amen." "Amen," the kids echoed. Derek murmured it too. Quiet, humbled. As they ate, laughter returned to the table. James showed Amina her drawing of a bluebird. Noah made a fort out of asparagus spears. The air felt lighter. But Derek's gaze never left Amina. She didn't just bring order, she brought peace. And in that moment, the most powerful man in the room wasn't the billionaire. It was the woman who had come back, not for money, not for forgiveness, but for love. And Derek knew he'd have to earn his place back in that light. The first time they try again, it's the park. James insists on holding both Amina's and Derek's hands, one in each fist. Noah trails behind, face upturned, trying to track a hawk against the morning sky. The picnic blanket is mismatched, and Derek sits stiffly on the edge like the grass might wrinkle his suit. Amina notices, says nothing. She opens the food container with a practiced twist. Apple slices, peanut butter, soft cornbread. She hands one to each boy. James drops his on purpose, looks up at Derek. "Pick it up, Daddy." Derek blinks. "What?" Amina suppresses a smile. "You heard him," Noah says. "You dropped your manners." Derek lowers himself to the grass. His hand brushes the apple slice. James giggles. The hawk soars overhead. The next morning, they try reading hour. Amina sets up 2 beanbags in the sunny nook by the stairs. She pulls out the same book she's read to them 57 times. Where Do Stars Go in the Day? Derek arrives holding his phone. Pauses. Pockets it. She doesn't comment, just gestures for him to sit behind Noah. The boy leans into him like it's the most natural thing. Amina starts reading. Halfway through, Derek's voice joins hers. Clumsy. Off rhythm. James laughs. "Wrong page, Daddy." "I'm improvising," Derek mutters. Noah corrects him gently. "You're learning." Derek turns the page. Tries again. Then comes the gumbo. Amina sets 3 aprons on the kitchen island. She wears hers in navy blue, embroidered with a small white A. Noah ties his own with a single loop. James demands help, and Derek kneels, knotting the back like he's remembering how shoelaces work. "Today," Amina says, "we cook history." She lays out the ingredients like artifacts: celery, bell pepper, onion, garlic, shrimp, sausage, a roux base already browning on the stove. "This isn't fast food," she says. "This is memory food. It takes patience." James dips his pinky into the roux. "Hot!" he yelps. "Lesson 1, Amina says. Ask first." Derek tries chopping onions, tries being the key word. "Like this," Amina shows him, guiding his fingers. Their hands touch. Silence. Noah watches carefully. "Did Mom ever make gumbo?" he asks. Derek's knife pauses mid-air. His voice drops. "She didn't like the kitchen." Another silence. James stirs the pot with a wooden spoon too big for him. The smell rises. Earthy, thick, familiar. Amina closes her eyes. Let it coat the room. They eat at the counter. 3 stools. Amina stands. Derek gestures. "You're sitting too." She hesitates. Looks at the boys. Noah pats the space beside him. "Please?" She sits. The gumbo is too hot, but no one minds. Derek takes one bite. Eyes widen. "This is incredible." James lifts a plastic dinosaur into the air. "Gumbo-osaurus!" he shouts. They laugh. The chandelier above them flickers as wind shakes the branches outside. Autumn is brushing in. It's movie night. Amina picks the Iron Giant. Too sad, Derek protests. Too real, she replies. Halfway through, Derek tears up, tries to hide it, fails. James sleeps on Amina's lap. Noah leans on Derek's shoulder. His fingers trail the hem of his dad's sweater. Did you ever pray for her? Noah asks softly. The question is not sharp. It's just flat, like a coin dropped in water. Derek's throat clicks. He looks at Amina, then the ceiling. I didn't know how, he whispers. I didn't think it mattered. Amina says nothing. Noah pulls the blanket up to his chest. It always matters. Derek can't answer. He just wraps an arm around Noah, holds tight. Rain hits the windows the next day. They make paper boats and race them in puddles by the back patio. Amina catches one drifting too far and kneels to return it. Gotta rescue the captains, she says. James nods solemnly. You always do. Another morning. She finds Derek outside early, trying to untangle the swing ropes. You need a sailor's knot, she says behind him. He straightens, looks sheepish. I googled a fisherman's bend. It looks more like a pretzel. She takes over. In seconds, the knot is smooth. You grew up with a porch swing? He asks. She nods. Every house in Baton Rouge had one. A pause. You think we could ever... He stops himself. Never mind. No, she says gently. Ask the whole question. He breathes. You think we could ever feel like a family? For real? Amina doesn't answer right away. She finishes the knot, tests it. Only if you sit in the swing too, not just fix it. He lowers himself onto the wood. The chains creak. Noah runs out barefoot, clutching toast. We ready? The boy yells. For what? Derek calls back. To fly. He dives onto the seat between them. Amina pushes lightly. The swing creaks, back and forth. The porch smells like rain and sugar. Derek leans back, eyes closed. He doesn't say it, but something in his jaw unclenches. Evening falls. Amina walks past the study, sees Derek at his desk, hunched over a yellow notepad. Writing. He doesn't see her watching. A line catches her eye. It says, if Grace had a voice, it would sound like her. She steps away before he can turn. In the kitchen, gumbo leftovers rest in a container labeled Midnight Emergency. She smiles. Outside, the wind dies down. Inside, the house starts breathing differently. Not healed, not whole, but no longer hollow. Just beginning. A white Lexus glides up the curved driveway like it owns the place. Out steps Monique Hamilton, hair lacquered into a tight twist, lips crimson, posture blade sharp. A strand of luminous pearls hugs her neck, and in her hands, 2 gift bags wrapped with gold bows, tags handwritten in cursive. Where are my favorite boys? She coos, her voice floating ahead of her like perfume. Amina, drying her hands in the kitchen, stiffens. She knows that voice. Derek's eyebrows twitch as he glances out the window. James and Noah, curled on the couch with Legos, lift their heads. Auntie Mo, James calls, halfway delighted. Noah doesn't move. By the time she reaches the front door, Monique has already kissed the boys on the cheek and handed them their respective gifts, a custom Lego Millennium Falcon and a Cartier pen for minor young author. James beams. Noah clutches the pen but says nothing. I hope you don't mind, Monique says, stepping into the foyer like she lives there. I was in the neighborhood. Amina emerges from the hall just in time to see Monique's eyes skim her apron, her natural hair pulled back in a protective wrap. The smile Monique offers is all teeth. Oh, she says coolly. You're still here. Amina nods once. Yes, ma'am. The boys asked me to stay. Monique's gaze flicks to Derek. Of course they did. In the dining room, she sits like she's on a throne, crossing her legs with a flourish. This house looks different. Lived in, even. She sniffs the air. Is that gumbo? Noah speaks up, flat. Auntie Amina taught us how. Monique's eye twitches. How lovely. Spicy, I presume. Derek watches silently as Amina moves to the kitchen, the boys trailing behind her. Monique waits until they're gone. Then she leans in, voice low and saccharine. "You look tired, Derek. Still working those brutal hours?" "Only when I want to feed my kids," he says evenly. She chuckles. "You know, Danielle always said you worked too hard to notice what was happening at home." His jaw tightens. Monique's fingers dance along the rim of her wine glass. "She wanted me involved, Derek, especially with the boys. We were talking, weeks before the crash. She recorded a message, in fact, about guardianship." He stills. "She left you as primary, of course, but she named me co-guardian. Legal rights, signatures, all of that. It was a backup plan." Silence. "Why now?" he finally asks. "Because I didn't know you'd replace her with the help," she whispers. He stands abruptly, knocking the chair back. His voice is ice. "You don't speak about her like that. Not here." Before she can respond, James calls from the kitchen. "Dad, Noah's asking if he can read the prayer tonight." Monique's face hardens. Derek moves past her without another word. The dinner table is warm, the gumbo steaming. Noah clears his throat and begins. "Thank you, Lord, for the people at this table. Thank you for second chances. Amen." Amina gently squeezes his hand. James claps. Derek whispers, "Amen." Only Monique remains silent, spoon untouched. "I remember when Danielle taught them their first prayer," she says suddenly. "It was the Our Father." Noah looks up. "I don't remember that." "You were 3, she says, too quickly. A beat. Monique's smile returns, practiced. "I was thinking, you should come stay with me sometime. My house has a pool and a piano." James's eyes light up. Noah hesitates. "I could pick them up this weekend," she continues. "Give you all a break." Derek starts to answer, but Noah interrupts. "Will there be bedtime stories?" Monique falters. "Well, Will you sit on the floor when I cry?" The table falls still. "Because that's what Amina does," Noah says quietly. "She listens." James nods. "She even learned our bedtime song." Monique's pearls seem to tighten. Derek doesn't speak. He just watches. Later that night, Amina steps out to the back patio to cool off. Derek joins her, silence thick between them. "She'll come back with lawyers," Amina says flatly. "I know." "You believe her?" "She doesn't lie," he murmurs. She twists. They watch the wind stir the magnolias. "She wants them," Amina says finally. "No," he replies. "She wants control." Inside, Monique lingers by the hallway mirror, adjusting her pearls. As she passes the boys' room, she pauses. Through the cracked door, she sees Amina kneeling by the bed, whispering a lullaby. She leaves without saying goodbye. But she leaves behind a flash drive on the hall table. Pearl-handled, monogrammed. It glints under the chandelier. And the boys sleep on, peacefully. For now. In 2. Lawson Mansion, study room. Night. The door slams behind Monique, her heels clicking across the polished oak. Amina rises slowly from the armchair, setting down a mug of chamomile tea. Derek, standing near the fireplace, doesn't even turn. "I thought we agreed you'd stay out of my home," he says, voice low. Monique scoffs. "And I thought we agreed you'd protect this family name, Derek." A beat. Caleb and Micah's laughter filters faintly through the hallway. Amina instinctively steps toward the door, but Monique's glare stops her. "Oh, don't pretend to play mother now," Monique snaps. "You've done enough damage." Derek turns. "Don't talk to her like that." "Oh, so the help is off limits?" She circles the room like a prosecutor. "Let me guess. She tucks them in, hums Negro spirituals, tells them bedtime stories about humility?" Amina says nothing, but she doesn't flinch either. "I'm not here to argue," Derek says. If you have something to say, say it. Monique's purse lands hard on the table. She pulls out a legal envelope, slides it toward him. Petition for emergency guardianship, she says coolly. Filed in Fulton County. Citing unfit parental decisions, specifically your decision to allow an unvetted domestic worker to assume full-time responsibility of the Lawson heirs. Derek doesn't touch the envelope. You're bluffing. Am I? She tilts her head. Because the court might be very interested in your little stunt at the daycare, yelling at staff, storming off with the twins, no authorization. CPS gets jumpy when billionaires forget consent. That wasn't legal? She smiles. No, it wasn't. Amina exhales slowly. You're doing this for power, not the boys. Monique turns on her. I'm doing this for legacy, sweetheart, something you wouldn't understand. Because once those boys turn 18, guess what? They inherit 26% of Lawson Group, voting shares, which means whoever raises them, molds them, controls this company's future. Derek steps between them. You never cared about Caleb and Micah. You barely saw them when Danielle was alive. I didn't need to, Monique snaps. Because Danielle had spine. She didn't outsource motherhood to the first housemaid who spoke Bible verses. The air stills. Amina's voice is even. I earned their trust. No, Monique says. You bought it. With your soft voice, your midnight snacks, your tragic little backstory. I've seen your kind before. Martyrs in aprons. Derek's eyes flash. Get out! But Monique lifts a phone. I could email this photo. She swipes to a grainy tabloid shot of Amina leaving the mansion holding both boys' hands. To the courier. Caption. Billionaire entrusts heirs to hired help. Mistress? Nanny? Who really runs the Lawson household? Amina stiffens. Try me, Derek says. Leak that and I go nuclear. You think you're ready for that? Monique narrows her eyes. You forget who helped bury the board scandal in 2019? I still have the file. Do you really want me opening that? Silence. Then, a voice at the door. Sir, says Victor Shaw, assistant to Derek, stepping in with his tablet. Board call in 10 minutes. Do you want me to push? Derek nods stiffly. Yes. Victor pauses. Eyes flick to Monique. You want me to escort her out? Monique smirks. Oh, he doesn't have the balls. She brushes past them, but just before leaving, she leans close to Derek. You're not a father. You're a figurehead. The moment Danielle died, the compass died with her. I'm just here to pick up the pieces. Door shuts. A long silence. Derek collapses onto the leather couch. Amina walks to the fireplace, watching the flames crackle. She won't stop, she says softly. No, Derek says. She won't. He grabs the legal envelope, tosses it into the fire. But I will. Into your parking garage. Moments later, Monique slides into her car. In the shadowed back seat, she dials a number. A whisper answers. Victor, she says. A pause. You got what I asked? Victor's voice is low. Yes. The financials from the Lawson Children's Trust Fund. There are inconsistencies. Send me screenshots. Tonight. A click. End call. Monique's lips curve. Game on. Into your Lawson mansion. Kitchen. Same time. Amina paces. Her hands tremble just slightly. Not from fear, but clarity. She hears a ding from the hallway. Tablet left behind. She peers at the screen. Lawson Children's Trust. Activity alert. 6 unauthorized queries flagged. Her breath catches. She scrolls. Each log tagged vshaw@lawsongroup.com. Her eyes narrow. Interior Victor's office. Night. Victor pours whiskey, staring at his burner phone. He replays Monique's last words. Game on. His expression? Not loyalty, but calculation. He taps open another contact. Zara. Private. Text. Phase 2. Ready. Monique doesn't know we're both playing. He hits send. Enter Caleb and Micah's bedroom. Later. Amina tucks the twins in. Caleb whispers, Miss Amina, is that lady going to take us away? Amina pauses. Brushing his hair aside, she smiles gently. No one's taking you, baby. You're exactly where you belong. Micah murmurs, half asleep. She smelled like perfume and lies. Amina chuckles. So does Derek, from the doorway. He watches her from the shadows. No more doubts, only fire. Enter Monique's condo. Midnight. She prints a new folder. Fulton County Motion. Lawson case. On the table, Danielle's will. She flips to the last page. A sticky note reads, "If Derek ever falls, protect the boys, but not at any cost, only if love leads." Her smile fades, just slightly. She rips the note, then dials her lawyer. File it. Intira Lawson Group HQ, conference room. Next day, Victor walks in with coffee. He places it on Monique's desk. She doesn't look up. Behind him, the security camera on the ceiling pans clicks. Recording. The courtroom is oak and quiet. Above the bench, a seal. Judge Renee Caldwell studies the two tables. On the left, Derek Lawson sits beside his attorney, Marcus Bell. On the right, Monique Hamilton leans forward in a pearl jacket, her counsel Alan Pierce shuffling papers. In the second row, Amina Clark folds her hands, the boy's small treasure box tucked inside her tote. Case number 24 FC 187, the clerk reads. Hamilton v. Lawson, petition for joint legal guardianship. Judge Caldwell nods. Counsel, appearances for the record. Pierce rises. Alan Pierce for petitioner, Ms. Hamilton. Bell stands. Marcus Bell for respondent, Mr. Lawson. Caldwell gestures. Mr. Pierce, your opening. Pierce buttons his suit. Your Honor, 2 young heirs lost their mother. Their father, preoccupied, absent, outsourced their upbringing to a domestic worker with no credentials. My client, the maternal aunt, seeks to honor the mother's intent and restore standards. Proper schools, proper staff, proper guidance. We will enter into evidence a video from the late Danielle Lawson naming Ms. Hamilton as co-guardian. We will also show a pattern of instability, culminating in the installation of a... He stops him. A murmur ripples. Bell rises. Objection to insinuations. Sustained, Caldwell says. Stick to facts. Pierce nods. The facts show need for joint guardianship. Bell rises for his opening. Your Honor, grief bruises judgment, but it also clarifies love. Mr. Lawson has made mistakes. He has also shown up, daily, for his sons. The boys are bonded to Ms. Clark because she is competent, empathetic, and trusted by their late mother. We will show petitioner's motive is financial, control of Lawson Group voting shares, and we will offer testimony about the children's best interests. Caldwell nods. Proceed. Pierce calls Derek. Derek raises his right hand, takes the stand. Pierce approaches. Mr. Lawson, is it true you permitted Ms. Clark to conduct religious rituals in your home? I allowed bedtime prayers when the boys asked. At first you did not, correct? I was wrong. And you reinstated her after firing her in anger? Yes. So your parenting depends on mood? No, it depends on listening to my cus. Is it also true you missed 2 board meetings and a Zurich negotiation to make pancakes? Bell. Objection. Argumentative. Overruled, Caldwell says. Yes, Derek says evenly. They had stopped sleeping. I chose them. Pierce smiles without warmth. Touching. Your Honor, Petitioner's Exhibit 3. The screen lights. Danielle, pale but steady, speaking into a hospital camera. If anything happens to me, she says, I trust Derek, but I want my sister involved. Monique understands our legacy. Our boys will need structure. The video ends. Pierce turns. Ms. Hamilton was chosen. Bell stands. We reserve authentication issues. So noted, Caldwell says. Pierce calls Monique. She glides to the stand, pearls catching light. Ms. Hamilton, why seek guardianship now? Pierce asks. Because I saw chaos, she replies. A housekeeper, nice enough, functioning as mother. My sister raised us to be disciplined. She would want standards. Do you love your nephews? Fiercely. Do you gain financially from joint guardianship? I protect their legacy. Belle crosses. Miss Hamilton, when was the last time you babysat Noah or James? She blinks. I visited holidays. That wasn't the question. She stiffens. I never babysat. How many bedtime stories have you read? Silence. How many mornings did you sit on the floor when one child cried and the other refused to eat? She shifts. I lead a foundation. I don't sit on floors. And when did you first consult an attorney? After Danielle's funeral. Not when she recorded that video? No. So you didn't know about the video then? Her eyes flick to Pierce. No. No further questions. Pierce. Petitioner calls Victor Shaw. Victor steps in wearing a tight tie. He glances at Derek, then away. Mr. Shaw, you are Mr. Lawson's executive assistant? Yes. Has his work performance changed since Ms. Clark returned? He's been distracted. By what? Domestic concerns. Did he authorize you to access the children's trust? No. But you did? Victor hesitates. At Ms. Hamilton's request, to evaluate educational disbursements. Belle stands, voice cool. No further questions at this time. Caldwell leans forward. Mr. Shaw, accessing a minor's trust without authorization skirts criminal exposure. You may invoke your rights at any time. Victor swallows. I understand. Petitioner rests, Pierce says. Caldwell turns. Mr. Bell? Bell stands. Respondent calls Amina Clark. Amina walks to the stand. She places her palm on the Bible. Her voice is steady when she swears. Ms. Clark, Bell asks, how did you meet the Lawson family? I was hired as a caregiver 9 months after Danielle's diagnosis. I've worked with children experiencing grief and anxiety. Describe Noah and James when you arrived. They were tender, brave, afraid of quiet. What did you do? I made routines. Warm food, story time, a prayer if they asked. We named feelings so they weren't monsters. And when you were fired? I left a box, drawings, a note. You are loved. Speak truth. You're not alone. What happened when you returned? They slept, she whispers. They laughed. Pierce stands for cross, a smile with teeth. Ms. Clark, you have no state license as a child therapist, correct? Correct. You are a maid. I am a caregiver. You clean floors. I build trust. Do you intend to replace their mother? No one can. Yet they call you Other Mama, do they not? They call love what feels safe. Is it true you engage the boys in religious practice against Mr. Lawson's explicit wishes? No. I listened when they asked to speak to their mother out loud. So prayers. Words shaped like hope. Caldwell interjects, voice even. Counsel, move along. Have you ever discussed Lawson Group with the children? No, she says. I discuss breakfast and bravery. Bell rises. Your Honor, with the court's permission, one more item. He looks to Amina, who nods and reaches into her tote. She produces a sealed envelope, worn at the fold, name written in Danielle's hand. To be opened if I do not come home. A soft gasp. Monique sits up. Bell speaks gently. Your Honor, this arrived under seal from Reverend Beatrice Franklin of New Hope Baptist. The Reverend will testify she received it from Danielle Lawson 3 days before surgery, with instructions to deliver to Ms. Clark if the worst happened. Caldwell's eyes sharpen. Foundation! The bailiff brings in Reverend Beatrice, who swears in and confirms chain of custody. Admitted as Respondents Exhibit 12, Caldwell says. Miss Clark, you may read. Amina breaks the seal. Her hands do not shake. My loves, if you're hearing this, I did not get the miracle I asked for. I'm not afraid. I'm grateful. Derek, if grief makes you hard, choose soft. The boys need your voice even when it shakes. To my sister, if you're tempted to make this about control, stop. Let love lead. And to Amina, if God allows, please stay near my sons. You are the only person I trust to carry their hearts the way I do. Teach them to pray when I can't hold their hands. Remind them I am not gone. I am changed. A hush falls. Amina continues, softer. Noah, keep drawing the sky. James, keep singing even when you think no one is listening. To all three of you, home is not a house. It's the person who sits with you in the dark. She finishes, folds the letter, looks at the judge. Pierce rockets up. Objection to weight and intent, hearsay. State of mind exception and testamentary intent, Bell replies, directly addresses the decedent's wishes for caretaking. Caldwell considers, then nods. Overruled. The letter will be given appropriate weight. Monique's face tightens. She wrote that during chemo. She wasn't thinking clearly. Caldwell's look ends it. Bell turns back to Amina. Why did you come back when Mr. Lawson asked? Because two boys were whispering into the dark, she says, and someone had to answer. Nothing further, Bell says. Caldwell sits quiet for a long beat. Rain taps the windows. Finally, she speaks. I have considered the statutory factors, the evidence, and above all, the best interests of Noah and James Lawson. Ms. Hamilton presented a video reflecting the decedent's preference for her involvement. Mr. Lawson presented testimony and a letter reflecting the decedent's deeper intent, that love, not optics, should lead. I will not punish a father for choosing pancakes over Zurich, nor a caregiver for praying when a child asked. She turns to Monique. I do not find that joint legal guardianship with you would benefit these children at this time. Petition denied. Monique jolts. Your Honor, Caldwell raises a hand. If you wish to know your nephews, you will do it on their schedule, in their home, with their anchors present. Any interference with their emotional safety will be addressed swiftly. She turns to Amina. Ms. Clark, the court recognizes reality. With Ms. Lawson's consent, you will remain the children's primary caregiver of record, with access to school and medical information, pending further order. Derek exhales. Amina closes her eyes, then opens them, steady. Caldwell rises. This court is adjourned. The gavel taps. In the hallway, a door opens. Noah and James race out, eyes searching. When they see Amina, they sprint. She kneels, catches both. Derek stands a step behind, tears he doesn't hide. Monique watches from the doorway. She turns away, pulling out her phone. Down the corridor, Victor Shaw slips into a stairwell, whispering into his. No one hears what he says. The look on his face is not relief. It is cold calculation. The courthouse door sighed shut behind them, and the city sounded different, less like engines and sirens, more like breath released. On the steps, Noah and James each clutched one of Amina's hands, the treasure box tucked under her arm like a small ark. Derek hovered close, the protective orbit of a man who had almost lost the center of his world and decided to stand nearer to it. Monique exited through a side door, pearls stiff on her throat, sunglasses masking a gaze that still darted toward cameras. No reporter followed. Her car slid away without a headline. Home, Noah said, not as a question. Home, Derek answered. The ride was quiet. Amina kept the treasure box on her knees and thumbed its nicked lid, feeling every dent the boys had given it in moments of fear and play. James whispered to the glass about whether snow would come early. Noah studied Derek's reflection in the window like he was memorizing it again. The mansion felt smaller when they walked in. In the best way. The echo that had haunted the foyer didn't return. Amina set the treasure box on the kitchen counter and, with the boys, arranged its contents with ceremony. The prayer card, the paper boat, 2 drawings, one of a moon with a smile, one of 4 stick figures holding hands. James asked if they could light a candle. Derek nodded and brought out the short pillar they used on hard nights. The match flared, the wick took, and the room warmed by a degree you can't measure. They ate like people whose bodies remembered hunger now that the storm had passed. Grilled cheese cut on a diagonal, tomato soup in wide bowls, apple slices fanned like a sun and sprinkled with cinnamon. Noah volunteered grace, short and plain, a thank you with the exact number of words his heart could carry. Derek listened with his eyes open. When dishes were done, they drifted to the reading nook without conference or permission. Amina chose the same book she had used the night they rebuilt the habit, The Iron Giant, edges soft from use. Noah curled under Derek's arm. James tucked into Amina, and when her voice faltered at a line that hurt in a good way, "You are who you choose to be." Derek's voice found the next sentence and carried it. The boys fell asleep in that overlap, like they were rocked on the seam between two voices. They carried them upstairs together. Derek took Noah. Amina took James. Under lamplight, Amina smoothed James's hair with the same gentle sweep she used on Fear. Derek tucked the corner of Noah's sheet like he'd watched her do, the small triangular fold that somehow told a child the world wouldn't come undone while he slept. Noah's eyes opened to slits. "You'll be here in the morning?" he murmured, a ritual question. "I will," Amina said. "I will," Derek said, at the exact same time. Noah smiled, honest and asleep, 2 breaths later. Back in the kitchen, the candle still burned. Derek reached for the kettle, then paused when his phone buzzed across the counter. He almost ignored it. The boys breathing upstairs was a better notification than any. But a red banner on the screen snagged him by the throat. Security flag, outbound email quarantined. He tapped. The alert expanded into detail that made the back of his neck go cold. External recipient, Mhet Hamilton Atua. Attachments, trust disbursements, Q3.xlsx, board notes, draft.docx. Sender, V. Shaw at lawsongroup.com. Amina saw his jaw change. "What?" "The mole forgot we install tripwires," he said, voice level because the boys were sleeping. "Victor just tried to email Monique our children's trust files and my notes." The kettle clicked. Neither of them moved toward it. Derek hit speed dial. "Cassandra, we have a quarantine hit. Outbound from Victor to Monique. Trust spreadsheets and board notes. Lock his badge, pull his last 24 hours, isolate his workstation, and meet me in my office." A beat. "Yes, now." He ended the call and looked at Amina. "You don't have to. This is—" "I stay," she said, simple as setting a plate. "Because they sleep better when they know we're downstairs." The office felt like a different country at night. Cassandra arrived in 5 minutes, hair still damp from rain, tablet already open to logs. Outbound at 7:16 p.m. We quarantined the message when the content hash matched protected files. He's still in the building. Badge pinged the south elevator 1 minute ago. Derek's hand found the intercom. "Security to the executive floor. Locate Victor Shaw and hold him in Conference B." He glanced at Amina. "You sure?" She nodded. "Let's end all our storms tonight." Conference B smelled like lemon cleaner and old decisions. Victor stood by the glass, jacket unbuttoned, a sheen on his forehead that tried to pass as sweat from hustle and not from fear. He attempted a smile that never made it to his eyes. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, palms open. "It looks like you tried to send confidential documents to my sister-in-law," Derek said. "I'm open to a better story." Victor's gaze flicked to Amina and stuck there, not with shame, but with contempt he had kept pressed flat for too long. "You really let the maid sit in on company business?" "You've been in my house long enough to know who keeps it standing," Derek replied, voice lower now. "Pick a different target." Cassandra placed printed logs on the table between them like cards. 6 access attempts on the Miners Trust portal. 2 succeeded. You saved copies of board notes to a personal cloud folder. The outbound email triggered our content filter. The recipient was Ms. Hamilton. Victor's jaw moved before words did. "The board needed stability. Monique promised it. I did what was necessary to protect Lawson Group. At the cost of my sons," Derek said, and the quiet in his voice hurt more than any shout. "You don't get to bargain with their lives." "They're not lives in a proxy fight," Victor snapped, losing the last coat of polish. "They're votes. You're blinded by this narrative." His chin jerked toward Amina. "And it's going to cost us the company." Derek took 1 step closer. "We can build another company. We can't build another Noah and James." Silence spread its net. Victor swallowed the last argument he had and came up with a small, mean one instead. "She'll leave, you know, and when she does, they'll hate you for losing their mother twice." Amina didn't move. "I'm not a placeholder," she said, I'm a person. I'll stay until they don't need me to stay. And if you ever speak about them as leverage again, say it far from my hearing." Cassandra's patience ran out. "Mr. Shaw, your employment is terminated for cause. Security will escort you to collect personal items. Your devices remain." Derek slid an envelope across the table. Letter on company letterhead, already signed and dated, printed the day he started trusting his gut enough to have contingencies. Victor stared at the paper like it had insulted him. "You won't survive this board," Victor said, more prophecy than threat. "We'll survive this family," Derek answered. "The rest is a spreadsheet problem." Security arrived. The door opened, then closed behind Victor and the people who would erase his badge from every doorway he had ever taken for granted. The lemon-clean smell returned, clean because something rotten had left the room. Back downstairs, the candle had burned lower, wick curled like a sleeping question mark. Amina pinched it out between wetted fingers. The tiny smoke ribbon roseted and vanished. "Thank you," Derek said, "for not letting me walk into that alone." She shrugged, the smallest of gestures carrying more than it looked like. "You didn't let me walk into court alone." They stood shoulders to shoulder at the window. Rain had thinned to a mist that made the magnolia leaves glisten under the security lights. On the counter, the treasure box sat open, the prayer card catching a stray draft and tapping a corner like a heartbeat. "I want to formalize what the judge recognized," Derek said, eyes on the yard he had neglected too long. "A durable caregiver authorization, school records access, medical decisions. And I want to set aside a fund, not payment. An investment in whatever you want to build when the boys are older. A learning room, a community space. Your dream, not mine." Amina blinked once, slow. "You don't owe me money." "I owe you partnership," he said. "I don't want you to feel alone again. Not here." She let the words sit. "Then the first thing we build is a routine that doesn't break when the market does." He smiled. Real, the one that reached his eyes. "Deal." Upstairs, James made the small sound he made when he dreamed of running. Noah mumbled, "We're okay," to the air. The house answered with old wood settling, the language of structures that had learned not to creak like panic. "Do you—" Amina began, then paused. "Do you want to say something? Not a speech. Just something." Derek's instinct was to deflect with humor. He didn't. "I'm out of practice. No one is grading." He closed his eyes just long enough to look inward. "Thank you," he said, into the shared space that had held both their losses and their luck. "For a judge who listened, for two boys who teach me what matters, for the woman who brought peace into this house with a prayer I didn't deserve. Give me the courage to keep choosing them when it's inconvenient. Help me be soft where I learned to be hard." Amina's amen was quiet and steady, the sound a house makes when storms pass it by. They turned off lights in rooms that no longer needed them. In the pantry, Amina paused, then pulled down a jar of flour, because tomorrow would need pancakes and rituals. Derek took 2 mugs to the sink and set them down without clatter, because upstairs, the center of their world slept. They moved around each other without choreography and still never bumped. People who had learned where the other would be. When they climbed the stairs, Derek stopped on the landing and looked at Amina as if he had been trying to find the right time for a single sentence, and at last recognized this one. "Stay," he said. Not a command. A request that assumed nothing and asked everything. "I will," she said, like she was naming a truth already in motion. Outside, somewhere else, Monique stared at the ceiling of a condo that did not hold the sound of children breathing and typed the first of a dozen emails that would not change a thing about the judgment that had been handed down or the home that had been built without her. In a different building, a badge failed to open a door, and a man in a suit watched his reflection in dark glass and understood too late what he had traded. Here, the treasure box sat by a window that would catch the first light of morning. The house held the kind of quiet that isn't empty. It is full. The old carriage house on the edge of the block didn't look like much at sunrise. Brick faded, wood trim scuffed, a wide door that had stuck for years. By noon, it wore a new name over the entry, hand-painted in looping script, "The Garden Room." Amina stood on a step stool with a brush between her fingers and a smear of teal on her cheek. Noah and James, in oversized t-shirts, dipped rollers into trays with the seriousness of surgeons. "Even strokes," Amina said, smiling. "Let the wall breathe." Noah nodded like he understood, dragging color across plaster. James made a gentle rain of speckles. Amina laughed and showed him how to feather the edges. Derek arrived with drop cloths and a box of fresh brushes he had no idea how to choose. He set them down, rolled up his sleeves, and asked which wall was safest for beginners. "That one," she said, pointing to a section that faced the morning light. "You're painting the sunrise." He tried, awkward at first, wrist too stiff, then looser as the color took. The room changed around them. Light caught on wet paint, windows opened to let the new smell out, and the neighborhood in. Reverend Beatrice walked over from New Hope Baptist with a tray of lemonade and a prayer tucked into her pocket. Mr. Lionel from the barber shop leaned on the doorframe, nodding at the way the twins handled a brush. Miss Ora from the corner store brought a plate of honey rolls and declared the space already holy. By late afternoon, one wall had turned into a mural. The twins' constellations scattered over a deep blue corner. Derek's sunrise rose from a horizon line a child had drawn. Amina's hand shaped vines that curled into letters. She wrote words she wanted the room to teach: patience, courage, belonging. Beneath them, smaller words the kids would add later: my name, my story, I matter. A long table arrived on the back of a pickup and became a workbench for jars of crayons, tubs of clay, stacks of notebooks. Amina labeled shelves with tape: reading, art, quiet things, and slid in spines of books she knew by heart: Morrison, Woodson, Hughes. She unfolded a quilt she and her mother had stitched years ago, squares cut from tired Sunday dresses and choir robes, and hung it where the afternoon sun could find it. The pattern looked like a road home. "Can we put our picture here?" James asked, holding the drawing of 4 stick figures that had lived in the treasure box. "Front and center," Amina said, and taped it where everyone would see it when they came through the door. Neighbors came. Not in a burst, but in a steady widening. A teenager who had watched his little brother after school and needed a table to do his own homework. 2 sisters in braids who wanted to paint but didn't want to ask. A grandmother with a folded flyer that promised a place for her grandson to read where nobody would laugh when he stuttered. Each arrival bent the air toward something like celebration. Derek put down his roller when a boy hovered near the threshold, eyes on the shelf labeled quiet things. "You can come in," he said, stepping back. "This is yours too." The boy slid inside and ran his fingers along the spines without taking one yet, like saying hello. Amina moved through it all without rush. She crouched to hear a question whispered too softly, stood to greet a father who didn't know how to ask for help without sounding like he was failing. She showed Noah and James how to wipe paint from small hands without smearing a shirt. Derek watched her in the way of someone learning how leadership looks when it wears an apron instead of a suit. When the sun leaned low, Reverend Beatrice cleared her throat. "We should bless it," she said. People gathered in a loose semicircle, elders in church hats, kids with paint on their cheeks, the twins in the front still holding their rollers like torches. Amina looked uncertain, and then her shoulders settled. "Not too long," she teased softly, and the room chuckled. The Reverend bowed her head. "Maker of seeds and seasons, thank you for a room where children will be watered with patience and sunlit by love. Let these walls hold laughter that heals and quiet that calms. Let every book open a door. Let every hand find work that makes them proud. And when hard days come, let this place be a soft answer." A chorus of amens rose. Low, sure, the sound of a neighborhood remembering itself. Noah slid his hand into James's. James squeezed back twice, their own signal for "we're okay." Derek stepped forward with a small envelope and a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "This covers the roof, the insurance, the finish work," he said, voice steady. After today, it's a community thing. Amina runs it. We follow her lead. Amina looked at him, startled. He shrugged, a little sheepish. I promised investment, not permission. Miss Aura clapped first. Others joined until the sound filled the room like weather. The teenager at the shelf chose a book at last and sat on the floor under the mural. The sisters dipped brushes and made a new galaxy in the corner Amina had left blank on purpose. Mr. Lionel rolled a chessboard out of a bag and set up pawns for a boy who said he'd never learned. Noah tugged at Amina's sleeve. Can we make a kindness jar like at home? She smiled. We already did. On the table stood an empty mason jar with a card beside it. Write one good thing you did today. Fold it small. We'll read them on Fridays. James dropped in the first slip. Helped my brother. A minute later, the teenager added the second. Read a whole page out loud. The garden room sounded different as twilight came. Pages shushing. Brushes tapping against jars. Soft laughter. A low hum that might have been a song Amina didn't know she was singing. Derek stood in the doorway, paint on his forearm, watching his sons move in a space that welcomed them the way the world is supposed to. Amina leaned the last ladder against the wall and stepped down. She wiped the teal from her cheek and left a bright smear on the rag. The mural's vines reached the corner and kept going as if walls weren't there. Looks like we planted something, she said. Looks like it's already growing, Derek answered. Outside, porch lights blinked on up and down the block, linking houses like beads on a string. Inside, under a sign that said the garden room, a community settled into a place that felt earned. Amina glanced at Noah and James, who were taping a paper moon above the reading corner, and knew they would sleep differently tonight, not just because the house was safe, but because the world just got a little wider, and it had their fingerprints on the paint. Night folded softly over the Lawson house, the kind that felt like a quilt pulled up to a tired chin. The garden room's paint still dried across town, but its color seemed to have followed them home, teal at the edge of thought, a small brightness in the corners. In the kitchen, the treasure box sat on the counter where the candle had burned during storms. Now the wick stood clean and unlit. Dinner dishes were stacked to dry. The scent of cinnamon lingered from apple slices the boys had begged for after the first day of helping run a place, as Noah put it. They gathered in the living room without deciding to. The lamps were low. Noah sprawled on the rug with a book open to a page he pretended to read, eyes sliding to the grown-ups every few seconds to make sure the world still held. James curled against Amina's hip, thumb idly tracing the seam of her sweater. Derek sat at the end of the couch, angled toward them, tie gone, sleeves rolled, paint the color of sunrise still faint on his forearm, where even the shower hadn't convinced it to leave. Can we do the thing? Noah asked, voice small but confident. The, words? Amina nodded. We can. Derek glanced at her, and in the quiet look he gave there was a question and also permission, something new they had learned to trade. Amina drew a breath, not to fill the room but to steady her own chest. She held out her hands, and the boys slid theirs into hers. Derek hesitated only a heartbeat before placing his hand over Noah's, his palm warm, the edge of callus reminding him he was built for building again. Just a few words, Amina said, short and true. She closed her eyes, and her voice came low. Thank you for the roof that holds what we love. Thank you for little hands that learned how to help. Thank you for laughter returning slow and real. Keep us kind when we're tired. Keep us brave when tomorrow wants more than we think we have. Let this house remember who it holds. She opened her eyes. The boys squeezed once, their small ritual. She looked to Derek, not pushing, not prompting, only waiting the way you wait for rain that might start. He cleared his throat, surprised to hear himself sound steady. Thank you, he said, the word shaped like something he'd carried a long time and finally set down. For second chances. for mistakes that didn't end us. For her, his chin tilted toward Amina, who walked in when the light was thin and stayed long enough for morning. Amina's amen came out like a soft yes. They didn't move for a moment. The house listened with them. Out on the street, a car rolled past slow. Somewhere in the backyard, a night insect started up like a tiny machine and then quieted, deciding not to compete with the calm inside. Noah let go first, leaning his head into Derek's side. When we start at the garden room on Saturdays, can we read to the little kids? He asked into his shirt. You can do more than read, Derek said. You can show them where the crayons are. That's leadership. He added it lightly, but the boy's spine straightened a little, the first weight of a good word settling in. James sat up, sudden and decisive. He slid off the couch and padded to the kitchen in socked feet. A moment later he returned, both hands under the treasure box as if carrying something live. He set it on the rug between them and sat cross-legged, hands on his knees. I want to give it to Daddy, he announced, voice clear. Amina's eyebrows lifted. She said nothing. Derek blinked. To me? James nodded, serious. We don't have to hide stuff now. It can be yours because our house is full. He pushed the box forward carefully. You can keep it where you keep important things, not under beds. Derek reached out and laid his fingers on the lid, feeling each nick the boys had made in their first months of being brave. He looked at Amina, and in his face there was awe the way it looks when a man realizes he is being trusted by someone who doesn't know how to lie yet. I've lost so much, he said, voice low enough that the room leaned in to hear it. He glanced at Amina as if giving her the line across a stage, not for her to hold, but to witness. But because of you, I still have a family. Amina didn't look away. Because of you, she said gently, tipping the truth back where it belonged. You chose them. You chose this. Noah smiled without meaning to. James looked pleased, like a small engineer whose bridge finally held. Where should it go? Noah asked, tapping the lid. Derek stood, the box in his hands now light and heavy at once. He walked to the bookcase beside the window, the one that had held frames with faces that were gone and books he hadn't opened in a year. On the middle shelf, at eye level if you were a child, he cleared a space between a photo of Danielle at the beach and a thick collection of poems that had once felt like a dare. He set the box there, centered. It looked right, less like a secret and more like a display in a museum whose only visitor that mattered lived in the building. Front and center, he said. James nodded, satisfied. Noah leaned back, hands behind his head, a sign his body gave when it agreed with decisions. Amina rose and crossed to the shelf. She adjusted the photo by a hair's breadth, not to fix anything, but to put her touch on a place she was allowed to touch. Then she turned, and the way she regarded Derek was the way people look at landmarks and say, "We'll meet here next time." "Tomorrow," she said. "Pancakes." "Tomorrow," he agreed, a promise disguised as a breakfast plan. They settled again on the couch, gravity rearranging itself the way it does when a room finds its final furniture. Noah drifted first, lashes slowing their blink until they stopped. James fought sleep longer, wanting to see where the box lived, then lost the fight with dignity, head dropping onto Amina's lap. She smoothed his hair, because that's what she knew to do when victory made kids sleepy. Derek watched them until watching felt like prayer, then looked to Amina, the thanks in him almost visible. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't need to. What connected them didn't require touch to prove itself. Outside, the magnolia leaves shone in the porch light. Inside, the treasure box held the ordinary miracles of paper and crayon and a folded card that had survived harder weather than tonight. Upstairs, a house had 2 small rooms and a promise in each. When the lamp finally went dark, it did not feel like ending, but like rest. The kind that says, keep what's good, set down what hurts, meet me in the kitchen when light returns. And when morning would come, it would find a man with paint still at his wrist, 2 boys who believed their home could stretch to hold more than 4 hearts, and a woman whose prayer had taught them all how to stay.